Right, we're live. I'm here today at Lockdown Children's Lit Fest with the fabulous Tom Palmer. I'm really excited about him. I'm Catherine Miller. I've been teaching for 20 odd years, and my favorite thing about teaching has been inspiring a love of reading, because it's the one thing that really transforms children's lives. So if you're bored at home and not sure what to do, pick up a book, because getting lost in a book is the best thing to transport you elsewhere. And at this time, at the moment in particular, it's just a really great way of escaping the four walls that you're sat in just now. So Tom, would you like to just tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself?
Yes, and thank you very much for having me on your show. I'm Tom Palmer and I write children's books. A lot of my books are to do with football, because I like football. These are like, those are straightforward football books, and these are sort of solving crimes in the world of football, like kidnapped players, murdered managers, stuff like that. But more recently, I've been doing historical books. I've done rugby as well. I've done quite a few rugby books. But recently, I've been doing history books, like set around the First and Second World War. So I do, and now I sort of, at the moment, I'm writing one of these a year, like history style book, and 2 or 3 of these football books. And that's as well as that, I do a lot of school visits. So I go around loads of schools to talk about reading for pleasure, like you were saying at the beginning.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? Getting kids engaged in reading. Yeah. You're quite prolific then. How many books have you actually written?
This is my new. This is quite an important one. This one. This is coming out in. Well, we don't know, because it was supposed to be coming out. This is my 50th book. So
wow.
Number 50. So that's exciting.
Oh, wow. And have you got a favourite?
Yes, my favourite is that one.
Oh, lovely. There we go. Twin. Right. Well, let's start off with your favourite then, because I've started reading this and I am really enjoying it. I used to do quite a bit of fell running, and then we were just talking before we came on. We're getting a bit old. My foot's sore. Tom's knees sore. This is making me want to go running again, and I'm thinking I might go for a little gentle jog and give it a go. So thank you for inspiring that. What made you? Why is it your favourite?
I suppose 2 reasons. One is I wrote it at the time when my daughter was doing a lot of fell running and racing, and it's kind of based on my daughter and the other girls that were running their competition. It's also sort of, it's about fell running, which is my sport I like to do. So, and this is kind of the girl character who's called Lily, who's the runner in the book. Mm-hmm. We went on a lot of runs together when I was writing it and researching it, and that really helped. So it reminds me of a lovely time with my daughter. But also, my books never win awards like these and all the others have never really won any book awards ever, and this has won 6, and it's just
wow.
Including a national one. And like, for me, who never won anything, like, not that, I mean, it's a miracle to win one, isn't it? But to win 6 made me feel like I can do it.
Yeah.
And because it did well, it made me take on more challenging stories like that.
Okay.
They gave me confidence.
Yeah, do you know, that's really fascinating to hear that you have got. Well, tell us what number that is going to be.
That's going to be book number 50.
Number 50. So 50 books under your belt, and you're still thinking, oh, actually, can I do it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like this week, I've written the first 4 chapters of a book, which is set on basically in the Arctic seas, in the Arctic Ocean and around there. And I'm completely, excuse the pun, out of my depth. I don't know really what I'm writing about, and I feel like I'm like dragging myself through the dark, and my confidence is like up and down and up and down. And I've sent it to a friend of mine who's a head teacher, and he's going to read it this weekend. Just it's like how much? It's 4,000 words, and he's going to read it, and I'm like thinking, what will he think of it? What will he say? But that's, I think everyone. I think the people who perform well in lots of things, they've got some confidence, but they're not too confident. And I think if you doubt yourself a bit, it helps you excel.
Absolutely. And I think that's such an important message for you to share with children, that actually, it's not all about being super confident. It's actually feeling that fear and doing it anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like that. This is about children who survived the Holocaust and came to live in the Lake District at Lake Windermere. And that was like, but how on earth can I write about children who've suffered the worst that humanity can do to humanity? But that was a massive leap of confidence. But I got help from other people, and I drew confidence from there. And I think if you do lack confidence, find someone who can help you believe in yourself more. Find someone who'll help you get to be more confident, which is that's what friendships and family is about, isn't it? Supporting each other, and then you can do things that you didn't believe you could do before.
Absolutely, and that's really interesting as well. Hearing that that as you know, as an author, you have a picture in your head. You're someone who sits in a room all by yourself. You don't speak to anyone else. You don't interact with other people at all. So it's really interesting hearing that actually it's really important to work with other people all the time.
Yeah, every book, like this one's about a boy whose dad is in the reserves in the army, and a friend of mine who was in the reserves, who I think you've met, he helped me loads, and he's told me stuff over the years, so I put that in about being a reserve soldier. But then he read through and he was like, "Well, that would never happen." And it's great, and that's good, because I don't want someone sat there with their parent who's in the reserves saying, "Well, that's a bit unrealistic." I want them to say, "Oh yeah, it was just like that." When I wrote these are would be stories about children whose mums and dads are in the RAF, the Royal Air Force. I went to a RAF base called Cosford and worked with the families, and they helped me get it right. So I don't know everything about anything. I know I'm writing about ships crossing the Arctic Ocean in 1943 at the moment. I know nothing about the Navy. I've got one friend who's in the Navy, and she's not replied to my email yet. So I'm in the dark, but I need her help. And watching.
Well, I might be able to help you with that, actually, because I'll come on to that in a bit, because I just wanted to pick up there about you. When I used to work in Catterick Garrison, which is the largest army garrison in Europe, it's absolutely massive. And we had a bit of an issue with children not being massive readers. So we did loads and loads of work in promoting reading, and it was absolutely brilliant. And some of the conversations I saw we had a little book, we had like a male governor who came in who was a serving soldier, and as soon as the boys in particular in kind of year 5, year 6 saw this man in uniform, they were just really like really inspired. And then if they were having conversations about books with them, that really helped get them into reading. And Tom actually came into our school and did a reading roadshow with do you want to talk through what you do with schools in case any teachers are watching? Because I would really recommend it for getting kind of disinterested boys into reading. You did a brilliant job.
Well, it's called the Football Reading Game, and although I do talk about my football books, I keep putting it the wrong way. Football books. It's kind of a quiz about different things you can read. In fact, I might have it. It's here actually. But so I'll ask questions like in a school assembly. So, for instance, I'll have a headline with a word blacked out, and the children have to guess what the headline is. Or I'll have a book about an author, and I'll ask you a question about Gareth Bale and magazines. And I'll try and get the children to talk about what magazines and newspapers and books they like to read as well. Then they answer these quiz questions, and they're kind of talking about reading in front of each other. But then if you get a question right, you get to take a penalty, and then you win. I don't think I've got any. They're over there. You win a trophy, and I've got a goal and put the teacher in goal, and so it's kind of like quite interactive and competitive, but it's very much promoting reading and getting them to say what they like to read, and not just saying you've got to read posh books, but you can read websites and newspapers about football. You can read Match magazine. You can read biographies. You know, it doesn't have to be like sort of all The Wind in the Willows or whatever. It can be something a little lighter or more up your street.
Absolutely. And that's a message that I always put out there, that there is no such thing as a wrong book to read, because quite often I've had parents say, oh, they can't read that, that's too easy for them, or it doesn't matter at all. If a child's interested in a book, then, and actually there's been loads of research done that shows that a child has to experience what they call flow to then go on to enjoy reading, and that all that means is being lost in the narrative, lost in the story. And once they've had that experience of flow, they're much more likely to go on to read other books. So
even graphic novels, like comic books, and that is reading. And but a lot of children are told that doesn't count. You need to move on. You need to move on from when you're kids. You need to move on from, or the things that you enjoy. You need to stop enjoying reading and read something serious. It's like, no, it's got to be a mixture, obviously, but
absolutely. But the challenge, once they've got that desire to read, the challenge can come later.
Yeah, I mean, I started. I can show you it just a minute.
I'm really hot here.
That I read. What? Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just saying I'm really hot. I'm in my onesie for Pajama-rama Book Trust Day.
So my first ever book, sorry, people who don't like Leeds, but my first ever book I read was like a history of Leeds United. They look like gangsters, don't they? But reading that encouraged me to become a reader. And then, since then, all those books on that bookshelf, they're about all sorts of different things. And that, because I enjoyed reading a book about Leeds United, I went and read all those books. So it's got to start with pleasure and flow, like you say, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant. Right, we've got a few comments here. We've got hello from Ava and Esme.
Hello, you're right.
And then Jennifer's saying that she loves that you publish with Barrington Stoke. Her son is dyslexic and their books are so accessible while being age appropriate.
They're brilliant. I love writing for them. And if you look at a Barrington Stoke book, I'm just trying to put out here they are. If you look at a book, you've got, that's a really good example. You've got the off-white pages, you've got the way it's designed, and the font is especially designed. And it's edited, it's written in the same way as any book, but they just make 2 or 3 editorial changes, and it makes it much easier for children with dyslexia or read stress, sort of visual stress. I love writing for them, and they're editors. I've had editors from some of the greatest publishing companies on the planet, but the best editor I've ever had is Ailsa, who edits these books. She's amazing, and she makes me work so hard, like a football coach who makes you work so hard you're sick of them, but you end up a better player and you end up a better writer. And that their editors are. It's not like special books for special children. They're brilliant and they're absolutely on it, Barrington Stoke. So I agree with that.
Yeah, it's great to give them a shout out. They're doing some really important work, because I think before their books became widespread, there wasn't that breadth, and it's just brilliant to get kids to think, actually, I can do this, and feel that sense of achievement as well.
And that book you've got there, Ghost Stadium, that's written, that's designed for and written. The content of it is kind of like 13 plus. It is quite scary and dark in some ways, but its age of writing is kind of 8+. So if you look at Barrington Stoke's website, you can see like the age it's written for and the age of the language. So its content language is separated, so you can get the right books to the right children.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like an 8-year-old, a book for an 8-year-old. It looks like a 13-year-old.
How old is your kid who read it?
My son is 12, and he's read this. So and I'm just going to show you that there. What I loved as well is that's the first chapter.
Yeah.
So the chapters are really short as well. So if your child hasn't got that reading stamina and isn't able to concentrate for a long time, then it's kind of broken down into smaller chunks as well. So
don't you still get that? I'm reading a book at the moment. I'm reading a book, and the chapters are like 40 pages long. And I'm like, oh god, I wish they were like 15 pages long. Then I feel like I was progressing, but it's tough reading. I'm still the same. I read short books and like short chapters.
Well, and when I read when I go to bed, and I'm always really tired, so I can only ever manage a few pages, and then I'm asleep.
Yeah.
So, and the other downside, dare I criticize J.K. Rowling? I don't know if I can, because I love her. I absolutely love her. I read all of her books as an adult when they were first published. The last book came out when my eldest was in her pram, and I used to walk around the streets reading her last book, perched on the pram. So I absolutely love J.K. Rowling. All my kids have been massive fans, but reading them to your child, the chapters are really, really long.
Are they? Right, yeah.
So she, so my youngest daughter at the moment is on the 5th one, and thank God that Audible is free at the moment, because we've downloaded that, and it's just taken some of the pressure off us reading for. And the bedtime story is sacrosanct. I absolutely love reading aloud to kids.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So all those caveats, but the chapters are a bit long. Sorry.
No.
Anna Holt is saying, hello, we love your historical fiction.
Oh, thank you, Anna. Hello, thank you. That's lovely.
And she says, we always like the fact that the reader can identify with your characters regarding of the era that they're living in.
Right, that's good to know. Yeah. Well, I hope with the one I'm doing now, it's I don't know, I suppose. I don't know why that happens.
How do you do a lot of research to get those kind of small details?
Massive. Yeah, I mean, the After the War, which is coming out, the one coming out quite soon, I'll do like a scrapbook, and I'll sort of like to develop characters, to develop setting and stuff like that, and also I'll get maps as well, and I'll really, like, for instance, like the story is set there in on the edge of Windermere, and you can't get there now because it's on private land. So I needed to stand on the bit of coast where my characters in this book stood. So I hired a canoe up there and canoed down so I could get there without crossing land. So I'll do a massive amount of research. Then I'll listen to, like, at the moment, the book I'm writing is about young men who went on these ships in the Arctic in the ice and terrible storms with submarines trying to blow them out of the water. And so I've listened to loads of interviews on the Imperial War Museum website where they're interviewed about their experiences, and I'll make like pages and pages of notes and lists, and watching films, interviewing people, visiting museums and all that. And you can probably only use about 5% of your research, but it means that you kind of know what you're talking about, and then it's less likely to make a terrible mistake, I suppose, which would be lovely.
And then so Anna says you can identify with the characters, so it all pays off.
I like I suppose one good example, if you can meet them, that's brilliant. So these children who came across and survived the Holocaust, some of them are still alive, so I've met some of them and talked to them about but the most rewarding thing in that sense was this is a picture of a family that lived in the Lake District when the children arrived from the concentration camps, and that is a girl called Joyce, and that's her dog Spot, and that's Joyce now with me. So I've met Joyce, and she's helped me loads. And when you actually meet the real people, I mean, when I've written about her childhood now, people can't contradict me really, because I've heard it from the horse's mouth. So either meet people personally, or you can go on like the Imperial War Museum website or other websites to hear it from the people who experienced it, and then you can feel confident that you've got the right voice and the right person.
Yeah, that's really fascinating as well, because yesterday I was interviewing Emma Carroll, who also writes historical fiction, and she was saying exactly the same things that you're saying, and meeting people, and she also used the archives. I can't remember what it's called now, but you know how each year has popular names. So she would think, what year is the year the book can be set in? And I'll go back 12 years and find out the most popular names.
Yeah, that's a good idea. definitely.
you absolutely need to do all this background work, don't you? But
And then just that really helps it feel authentic, I suppose. Like you do, you do know what you're talking about, and then I suppose and also reading other books, reading autobiographies, and reading books that other authors have written, not to steal what they've written, but just to learn how they dealt with it. But so when I wrote this about the Holocaust, I read Boy in the Striped Pajama, and I read the Morris Gleitzman series and all the other books, not to nick ideas, but to make sure mine was different, but also to learn about what things that I could look into and to find out more myself.
Mm-hmm. So writers are readers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any favourite characters that you've written?
Yeah, Lily. Lily. What? Sorry.
Because she's based on your daughter.
Correct. Yeah, she's in. What's she in? She's in a couple of spy novels that I did for Puffin. So she's the main spy in them two, and she's in Secret FC as well when she was younger. In this girl who starts a secret football team, and so yeah, she's my favourite character for obvious reasons. She's in the next room.
So you have to say nice things. Where do you get your inspiration from?
For the ideas for books?
Yeah.
I suppose each one's different. Like that, my daughter was running. That we got a dog, and I wanted to write a book about a dog. So I looked into history, and I knew the anniversary of D-Day was coming up last year. So I sort of found out about Glenn, where's he gone? The paratrooping dog. So he was a parachuting dog in the Second World War, and so it's really personal things. But then with this, my wife heard a radio program, and she said, "You've got to listen to this and write a story about it." So I did, and then other stuff. I mean, being a Leeds fan helps. Writing about a football club which is completely screwed up and a mess, because I know all about that. So it's very personal stuff.
Yeah.
Then you keep an eye on the market as well. You know that there was no rugby books for children, so I thought I'm going to write some rugby fiction. I've even done with smaller publishers. I've done some rugby league books as well. So I think about what I want to do and what people want to read, and try and find a way of dovetailing the two.
Yeah. Do you my mind's gone blank. It was the Roy of the Rover book. Just you held that up. Can you explain the? So before we came on, you were talking about the graphic novel running alongside the novel. Do you want to just talk about that? Because I thought that was really fascinating.
So the Roy of the Rovers books, there's two sorts of books. There's the novel by me, so you've got your straightforward illustrated children's fiction like that, but you've also got graphic novels as well, which are written by Rob Williams and illustrated by Lisa Henke, and they're so it goes, if you want to read the whole season, there's 6 books, and you need to read the whole football season, it goes novel, graphic novel, and the end of mine is picked up immediately at the beginning of Rob's, and so it's they sort of, and for reluctant readers who struggle a bit with, which I did when I was that age, I was a very reluctant reader, but struggling with that, if you can get into a book like reading a graphic novel and get into the characters, you're going to be more engaged with it and able to read it more fluently, like you were saying earlier. But by being familiar with the characters and the setting. So then we've done 12 so far, and there's another few planned in the future too.
So how does the process work with? Because obviously, if you're writing a novel, although yes, you're getting ideas and help from other people, it's just you. Whereas this is obviously a very collaborative project.
Yeah. So before we write them, we meet and we thrash out a plan for the whole season, what's going to happen, and then we look at the whole season, the events of the season. Then we divvy them up. Who's going to get the playoff final? Who's going to get the bit when his dad gets really ill? Who's going to get all that? He tends to get all the glory moments on the pitch, to be honest. I get it, but then it's more, it works better visually. I think reading about football can get a bit boring in prose, but on a graphic novel can bring it to life maybe more. But so this is a mixture of football, but there's also personal stuff, like his dad's ill, he's a carer, he spends a lot of time looking after his dad as well as being a professional footballer. But in a novel you can go deeper into the personal relationship. So I think it works well that we do the two, and we cover the same characters and the same settings and the same drama, but we sort of divvy up the time that we've got.
And sorry, what's the author of the graphic novel called?
Rob Williams. And the first graphic novels were illustrated by Ben Wilshire, but that's been taken over now by Lisa Henke.
Okay. So if Rob wrote something that you felt was really not fitting for the characters that you'd written, would you be able to say to him, you need to change that bit?
Yeah, and vice versa. And he's really good like that. And we show each other our plans, and we'll say, he will say, can you not do that because I want to do this later on, and it would undermine it. And we get it. And we've got an overarching editor who sort of sees to it all.
That's absolutely fascinating. Yeah. I was chatting to Mo O'Hara last week, who writes books for similar ages of children as you, the Big Fat Zombie Goldfish, and she's just done she's written a graphic novel. And I said to her, that must be really interesting, going from writing prose to a graphic novel, and because the pictures come first. And she said, actually, that's not true at all. What comes first is the story, and she writes it as a script, and then the pictures are drawn around.
Oh yeah, and he does. He writes. He writes the script and prevents it, but it's like stage directions as well. So it's like, and there's words that they use that I don't even understand for what certain words mean, certain types of images. But so he kind of does stage directions, and the illustrator artistically works that out. It's fascinating.
It is really fascinating. I'd never ever thought about how, and I'd always just presumed it would be the pictures that came first, but obviously it's all about the story.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do the pictures come out how you would imagine them? In
these, no. I mean, it's mixed. Like, so I'll talk about ones I'm positive about. So, like Lisa Henke does these. Did these earlier on, and I think they're she did the first several books for me, including just trying to find one to show you because we were talking about fell running. He does Roy to get fit. Roy does fell running because that's kind of my thing, and I can't find one, but so she does the pictures, and she'll this is a scene where Rocky, Roy's sister, takes penalties against Roy in front of her teammates. And that picture is I just love it. It really brings it to life, and I just think she really nails it. But then I've got other illustrators like a good example is David Shepherd. So David Shepherd, the football is like really different physically, isn't it? Like the ball is to do with the legs and the hips. I suppose.
Yeah.
And the head, but rugby, it comes from like the arms and the waist and the chest, doesn't it? So but David Shepherd, who illustrated these, was a rugby player, and so they found someone who knew what he was talking about. The body shape is so different. So the publisher will choose the best illustrator for you. But, I mean, most illustrators are great, and I don't really have a say anyway. So.
Well, it's all worked out brilliantly. I think they complement each other perfectly.
Yeah, I like that.
Anna's asking, how much of the plot have you planned at the outset of writing?
Loads. I can show you. This is which one is this? This is after the war. So this is novel, but in doing that, I needed to do a lot of planning to get it all right, and so this is like the plan. Hang on.
Oh wow!
And it goes on, and I can't even show you at all. It goes on and on and on, and that's like my visual plan, and then I'll turn it into a written plan. And I like using these because you can move the post-it notes around. So the blues are the scenes, the events that are happening to the children. Then you've got the different characters. You've got green, orange, and there's yellow somewhere. There's another colour somewhere. Where's he gone? So there's different coloured different characters, and so you can put it all together to make sure all the characters have the same path. And so that would take, like, the research and the planning of After the War took about 2 months. Then I started writing it, and it took about 2 months to write, 2 months to edit. Planning is huge, and some authors say they don't plan and they keep it all up in their head. And I believe that some people can keep everything in their head, and I can't. And I plan and write things down and list them, and so I do loads of planning, and I love it. I think it's one of my favourite bits. So.
Is it? I love that visual. I think that's so powerful, and that would be a brilliant way for children to plan out a story as well. We often, when we're teaching, we often talk about a story arc or a story mountain. So you start off with like introducing the scene and the characters, and then they have a bit of a problem, and then a crisis, and then they start to solve the problem, but it might not be resolved, and then the end's a nice, satisfying, and it doesn't have to be a happy ending, but you have to tie up all the threads.
It's good with post-it notes. You can, I always find once I write a plan and put it on a piece of paper or like on a computer, it's dead and it's kind of fixed. Whereas if you do it on post-it notes, you can move them about. And these, like, I numbered them initially, but if you look at it, you can see that the number order isn't sequential anymore. It's changed, and that's because I moved the scenes about for more dramatic effect. And that I wouldn't have been able to do that on a bit of paper, having the post-it notes. And this, because I was away in hotels and that, while I was doing this planning, this made it portable, so I could just take it with me. So.
Brilliant! It reminds me of a crime scene board that you see on.
They look just like I see them. You're right.
Yeah, the bits of string connected.
And then you and the little lines coming in.
Yeah.
Because they've got bits of things they know and lots they don't, and they're trying to make a plot. They're trying to work out who, why, what, when, where, aren't they? And that, in a way, that's when you're planning a novel. Yeah,
they're trying to get the story out of. Yeah. I'd never thought of that either. Oh, fascinating! You've kind of connected bits of my brain here. Thank you, Anna. That's a great question. And she's got another one. How easy or difficult do you find it to come up with the titles of your books?
Sometimes it's easy, like After the War. Actually, no, After the War wasn't easy, because I was really, really wanted to call it The Windermere Boys, because it's about some children who went to Windermere, and they were called the boys. Even though some of them were girls, they were known affectionately as the boys. Like 90% of them were boys, but the publisher didn't like that title at all, and they asked me to find another. So I suggested 3 or 4, and they didn't like them. And finally, I thought After the War, and they went for that. And I'm glad they did. I think they were right. Publishers make a lot of choices to do with book covers and titles, but so they edited me into choosing a title that works better. It means more probably, but Armistice Runner just came because it's about a runner during the armistice. A Dog was even more obvious, but there was other ones that I was just completely told, where are they? I thought I had them, but I've got some books about children flying aeroplanes, and I really wanted to call them after each airplane, the books, but the publisher at the time, they didn't want. One was called Spitfire, one was called Typhoon, and the other was about a Sopwith Camel, which is a biplane in the First World War, and they wouldn't let me call it Sopwith Camel, so it's called Flyboy. And for me, it doesn't do it. It doesn't really cut it for me as a title, but publishers make the decisions on the title in the end. Publishers write the cover, publishers write the blurb. I'm not anywhere near my blurbs, and so, but they specialize in that sort of messaging, and they know children's books more broadly than I do. So in the contract it says I write the story, but they do all that stuff.
Yeah, they do the marketing. And for someone who doesn't know anything about planes, I've heard of Spitfire, and Flyboy kind of speaks to me. I understand what that book would be about. The other title that you said could have been written about. Sorry, no, not Typhoon. What's the other one?
Sopwith Camel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's about ancient Egypt for me.
No, yeah, true. So they were right, but I fought them quite hard on that.
Well, that must be quite frustrating at times, but
Wow,
it's the way of the world.
Lucky they're publishing my books, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to kick off too much. I kicked off once with a publisher. Once,
like a celebrity.
No, not well. Not. There was just like most of the time you talk about it and you go with the flow. But the first publisher to publish this, it wasn't Barrington Stoke. The first publisher to publish this, it's about two girls who start their own football team. Particularly Lily is the main character. The first publisher put a boy on the cover of it, and they said, one, girls don't like football, rubbish. Two, boys won't read it if it's got a girl on the cover, like rubbish. Like loads of boys have bought and read that. It's about a girl, and I said, I made a massive risk. I said, because I wanted a book with a girl on the cover of a football book, because there were barely any at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, I am not going to give you permission to publish it unless
you.
But I could have.
Gamble.
I think I got paid £3,000 for that book. I was lucky they didn't just boot me out and never publish me again. But I just want to stress that not Barrington Stoke. They've always been lovely.
Yeah.
If they're watching.
I think it's a bit tricky and I understand that it's difficult for publishers because it's a commercial business. They need to make their money, and they do kind of follow the market. But I think at times they need to lead the market too, and say that actually this is good. This is okay for girls to play football.
Yeah, in the same way, this getting a book about a girl doing sport is really hard. It's really, really hard. And this one publisher before Barrington Stoke went for this said, we'd like to publish it, but we'd like you to make it about a boy, not a girl. And that was like, but there's just there is some, but there's not a lot of fiction. More now, maybe, but about girls doing sport, particularly girls doing like sort of looking athletic and strong and fit. In sports books, and it's really important to have books that reflect that, because most of the girls that I know through my daughter are strong and fit, athletic people, and need to be portrayed in that way, as well as other ways that you would portray a young person. Absolutely,
we need all sorts of role models, and I think I really salute you for doing that, Tom, for creating those role models for girls, because they absolutely need them.
Yeah.
My daughter's 15, similar age to yours. She had to do an English presentation, and they could do it on anything, and she chose to do it on the perceptions of teenagers in the press. Right. So she just Googled positive news stories about teenagers and negative news stories about teenagers. Millions of negative ones, and there was one positive one. It was about Greta Thunberg. So, it's just teenagers they're really amazing people, and they get such bad press. So it's brilliant that you're helping change that.
That's good. And I'll introduce you to my favorite new favorite character after Lily. So Roy, who's the hero of these books, he started off in this series. Well, we saw her earlier, his sister Rocky, and she was just going to be a bit part character, but I'll bring her over. Here she is. This is Rocky, who's a character, and she's now got the next one of these books is I don't think I've got the cover with me, but the next one of these books is actually I have just a minute. Yeah, so she's that's the cover of the next Roy of the Rovers book. This is just my manuscript, and
brilliant.
She's on the cover, and she's tough. She's like a head case. She's really up for it, and she's going to be joining, having a book of her own. And now, from now on, it's going to go Roy, Rocky, because she's such a compelling character that she's and I love writing her. She's after Lily. She's my favourite character, definitely.
Oh, fantastic! Brilliant. So, do you have a routine for writing? Do you have to be quite disciplined?
Yeah, I mean, normally I write. And normally I'll do schools 3 days a week, and I'll try and write Monday, Friday more. And then if I'm away in hotels or on trains for a lot, I'll try and write on the trains while I'm going. But now, that I managed to fit it in. But now, I mean, I could lie in until at least 9:30 before the dog started like losing it. But so what I'm doing is I'm getting up and I'm writing. I'm get up at 7:30 and write from 8 till midday, which I did today. And then in the afternoons I'll do stuff like this, or I'll do more research and things like that. So I am at the moment I am quite structured, which is good, isn't it?
Yeah. So how are you finding lockdown? What are your best things and your worst things?
The worst thing is the news and seeing the worst thing is seeing the numbers and knowing, like, a teacher I've worked with a lot over the years emailed me today, and her mum has passed away from the virus, and just people who I know have had it, and luckily have survived it, haven't really been affected that much yet. But it's really frightening. We've got people in our family who are in their 70s and 80s and 90s, and we worry about them. And then business, I've lost about 30 days in schools work, and that's like a quarter of our income from the year has gone.
Yeah.
I do all right earning books, but I earn about £10,000 a year from books being published. But as a family, my wife works with me as well. We need more than that to school events are just gone, and that's potentially, we can cope with it till June, but if it goes on in September, I will have to stay in a published book and get another job, full stop. And so they're the dark sides, but all like the economy and all that stuff is to worry about. But I do believe that we will as a country, and other countries too will go for it and recover, because we don't have an option, I think. And I think we will. And like you say, the teenagers of today are brilliant people, and they will help us in that. And I think we're right. But the good things is I've had loads of time at home with my family. I feel guilty saying it, but I'm away a lot, and I've loved being with my wife and my daughter, sitting in the garden and playing board games and watching telly. We've had a lovely time, and so that's been nice. And I'm not tired like I usually am. Am I in silhouette, or can you see me?
I can see you. You can see if you. Yeah, we can see you. You're a little bit dark on your left-hand side.
Down, or does it matter? It probably doesn't matter, does it?
I think we can see you.
Good. But yeah, so for me, what about you?
For me, I miss my mum, and she's only a mile away. She's a 12-week people at least. So we've biked. My youngest daughter's learnt to ride a bike without stabilizers. Hallelujah. So we've biked along there, and it's been lovely. Actually, that's been one of the great things, because with my eldest two, we never would have cycled on the roads that we have done with my youngest, because they were so busy. Yeah. So I love the quietness, and I really, really feel like you. I feel quite optimistic. I feel quite hopeful that we will change our ways. And
I think we're going to change our ways. And if you look at, like you mentioned, Greta Thunberg and people like that, the things that they've been telling us about, those things I think those things are going to change as a result of all this. So we can find a more positive way forward. Although, I mean, jobs wise, we're all right for now, but I know there's lots of people suffering.
Yeah. I work for a charity. We go around schools, and the schools get a year's worth. It's Department for Education funded. They get a year's worth of free breakfast.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating going around all the schools and hearing the impact that makes on children's lives. So there's a lot of vulnerable people who are struggling. So I think it's really important but equally, the sense of community has really grown, and I think we're going to be more mindful of the more vulnerable in society. So I think good things are going to come out of it, I hope.
I think there's definitely more kindness in people you meet and in on social media generally. I think people are being kinder and nicer. So, and that's a good thing.
Long may that last.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, you said that you mentioned the Arctic. Now I've got a story for you here. My dad, he passed away in 2013. He was 70 something. I can't remember. 75, I think. And in 2011, he was the first person to sail around the Arctic clockwise in one season.
Was he? Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And he actually spoke to a ghostwriter before he died. And with one thing and another, we just didn't get the book printed. But this year we've got the book printed. So I'll send you a copy.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that'd be so useful.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I sailed with him to Iceland, which was really exciting. It took us 2 weeks. We left from Hartlepool. We went to Aberdeen and then Orkney and the Faroes.
Right.
And
where did you go?
Sorry?
What time of year did you go?
May, June. So we were actually we arrived in Reykjavik, I think 2 days before the longest day.
Right. Oh wow.
So we saw the night sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very strange.
Yeah. No, I love
so that was actually his first journey. That time he made it all the way through the Northwest Passage, north of Canada, and then the weather wasn't looking great, so he actually turned south and came down through the Bering Sea, and he got caught in a storm with at that point he had 2 crew who weren't used to my dad. He was a bit of a crazy old man, and he'd been in storms that were worse than that in the Bay of Biscay, going between France and Spain. So he knew what his boat could cope with, but these 2 guys didn't. So my dad was up on deck, putting the sail up, and they sent a Mayday radio to the. So one of the big crab ships came to rescue them, and because they left, he had to go. So, and actually, as the seas were so big. My dad was the big crab boat broke the mast of my dad's boat, so that he had no option. He had to abandon that ship. So that was his first trip around the Arctic.
Have you read Perfect Storm?
No, but
I'm reading that at the moment. That's about fishermen going out from North America out to in the storms, and it sounds. I would just be really rubbish at it. I'd be so. I read other people's accounts. So reading your dad's book would be ace, please.
Yeah. Well, I'll get the details for you and send that to you. It'd be a pleasure.
That'd be ace.
So, I just wanted to talk about your website as well, because the resources you've got on there are amazing. You have gone really dark there, by the way.
Right. Give me a minute. I'll in the poll. How's that? That's better.
Is it falling? Yeah, that's good.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, what did you ask?
About your website, you've got amazing resources on there. It's really just brilliant. Do you want to just talk about it and tell everyone where they should go to find you?
Yeah, if you go to, there's an extra W on there, obviously. If you go to www.tompalmer.co.uk, there's loads of on the one that says free stuff. There's loads of free stories and projects you can do. So for instance, this for VE Day, even though this has been delayed, it's set around VE Day. So it's there's on the website there's activities you can do around that. There's blackout poetry you can do about the First World War, and there's a guide how to do it. There's certificates. If you've read all of a series, you can have a certificate. There's just loads of stuff to do with reading, writing, and history. And I won't take the credit for it. My wife does most of it. So she's really good at that sort of stuff, so she does it.
Oh, it is brilliant. Well worth a look. So definitely next Friday, go along and or before next Friday, get some. If you're homeschooling, you'll find some brilliant resources for VE Day.
Yeah, there's so for this there's some paper chains. There's paper chains of children who were involved in the war, and you can colour them in yourself. Then there's other stuff. I can't remember, but there's sort of there's blackout poetry and other activities that link to VE Day.
Brilliant. Well, we'll definitely go and look at them. I'm going to have to go because I am about to melt in my pajama onesie. So it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, Tom. A real pleasure. Thank you so much. And I love what you do for getting boys into reading and encouraging children. Just absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
So next week I'll be back with another historical fiction author, Catherine Woodfine, 2 p.m. next Wednesday. And you can come and join my Facebook group, Bringing Up Book Lovers, which is a supportive group for helping parents motivate their children to read. So, Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you again. Thanks for having me along. See you later.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.